Today's topic, how to create multiple streams of income, right? So obviously we're in a world today where, just having one stream just really isn't enough. I think that was something that worked out a lot for maybe our parents or our grandparents, the, age old American dream. But especially if you live out here in the Bay Area or LA or New York or really expensive areas, really anywhere in the United States at this point, it's getting expensive, right? So I want to show you guys just how, we built out some of our stuff as well so that you guys can, take what you can and what you need and apply it for your own life. So cool, guys. So just some background if you don't know who my wife Jenny and I are, but we have 27 streams of income, right? So 21 of those come from real estate properties that we own, and 6 of those come from businesses. Businesses are really our active income, so where we trade our time for money. We have our passive income a lot coming from real estate stuff, but what that allows us to do is it allows us to focus on our passion, right? Like things, for me at least, it's to help empower other people to be able to find their passions, right? And so that's what fills our cup. That's where, things like Zen Coach University or Ikigai for us, like that allows us to do those types of passion projects. So for us, really, even today, I want to spend time to help empower everyone on this call so that they can find their passion as well. So at the end of the day, none of this means anything, right? Unless you have a bigger purpose for your time and energy. And really what I want to hone in today is, why this in general of having multiple streams is so important in today's world, so that, you guys can figure out how you guys can make a bigger impact on anyone and everyone that you know in your community as well. So quick things, agenda today, 5 main things. So why you need to have multiple streams, what are potential streams of income, how to create those, and we'll go over some case studies and then some questions as well. Sound good?
Yeah.
Have one in the chat if that sounds good and you're ready to rock.
Let's go.
Let's go. That's right, Eric. All right, so why do you need to have multiple streams? Anyone knows? Anyone come off mute or put in the chat? Why do we need to have multiple streams today?
In case one fails, you have other insurances.
Yeah, I love that. So let's say what's happening right now. Are we in the R word? Are we getting into a recession? Like if that happens and we're, heavily, in a real estate agent, right? Like, real estate's gone down a lot this year. Do we have other streams of income that are going to help us out? I love it. What else?
Well, there's having more cushion, which is kind of the same thing, but in reverse, sort of.
Yeah, I love that. So cushion meaning like energetically not having to worry about money on a day-to-day basis, right? The ability to just, go out with your friends or your family and just take up the bill and just say, you know what, I got it, no worries, right? Like Jay and I, we went to dinner last night for our date night. We went to Korean barbecue. Our bill was $98. We tipped our waiter $100, and he was like, "What the hell? Like, no way!" Right? It made his day. But like to be able to do that, right? You just feel like just an amazing human being, right? So, yeah. So thank you, Lynn, for getting this. You said you were just gonna sit and listen today. I guess you're.
I can't shut up sometimes.
I love it. Keep it coming. Keep it coming. Okay, so why is that important? Okay, so essentially, obviously, if we all had limited money, we wouldn't be on this call right now, right? But 3 main things that I'd say is debt traps, rising costs, and just life is too short in general, right? So number 1 is debt traps, right? Society has really conditioned us at a super, super young age that we need to have things to make us feel better about ourselves, right? It's kind of keeping up with the Joneses. Truthfully, as corny as this may sound, like the only thing that you really need is you, right? You are enough already. Like we don't need any of those things. We don't have to have a nice car or anything like that. As long as we have good people that love us and are, and we love ourselves, that's the only thing. But unfortunately, sometimes we fall into this trap, right? And we're going to talk about that here in a second. Also rising costs. I'm sure you guys have seen this time and time after again right now that like things are just getting more expensive, right, in general. So especially in the Bay Area, and is that outpacing wages, right? And then life is too short, right? Like we are all gonna die one day, and some things change so fast in our lives. Guess what? No one remembers stuff at the end of, no one remembers just money and assets that you have at the end of your life. Like what they remember is like who you were, like what you did for other people, right? Like if you ever have gone to a hospice care and just talk to someone there, one of those impactful experiences for me of just like what do you regret most, right? And most people will say, they don't say I regret not having a bunch of property or things like that, but it was always spending more time with the people that we loved, right, and things like that. So I just really want to hone that in, because I know we're going to be talking a lot about income and different businesses and streams and stuff, but really I just want everyone to remember, like, none of that even matters at the end of the day, right? But what does matter is what we already have today, and this can help enhance that, sure, but it's just, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. So what's the number one thing? That's that debt trap. So when we are young, when we even take our first, step into that school system in pre-K or kindergarten, that they teach us what? That teach us in this fairy tale world in life that we have, that we should go out and make some money. We should go out and buy nice things. We should go to college, right? We should have a nice wedding. We should buy a nice car. We should buy a nice car, and all that stuff is nice, right? But if you look at it, like, this is like in your 20s and 30s that like everyone is doing all this stuff, and really, college is on average like 60 grand. Weddings on average, especially in the Bay Area, is like 100 grand. A house in the Bay Area, just to start off with, is $1 million. A car is 55 grand on average right now. So like, you're entering almost 8 figures in debt before you even think about starting to invest seriously in assets. That's most people, right? Now, not in my network. This is why I wanted to especially have this call today, because I want to rewire everyone's brain to say, no, how do we start to create assets first? How do we create multiple streams? And every stream that you have is another, year or whatever off of you having to work as well. So debt traps, which is crazy to me. And not to say you guys can't have these things. You should, if you guys want to, that's what your passion is, but just build assets first, right? So that they can pay for these kind of things. So rising costs, right? So coupled with this is just rising costs, right? The American dream of having a single income household is just getting more tough every year, right? Because back then it worked because the buying power was just so much more back then. Like, things were so much cheaper, right? Based off of what people were making. Now our buying power has shrunk significantly. It's only getting worse. I mean, inflation is one of those aspects of it, but here's a graph that just shows like where wages were, or what the growth is of wages to what the average house price is. Like, that's an asset that we all want to own at some point. But like, look at this. Like, yes, wages have gone up, but they just have not gone up as fast as real estate or other even goods in general, right? So what does that show us? Is that, holy crap, like we got to do something, right? We got to increase wages. We got to do other side things. We got to be smarter and more intentional with our time and our energy, so that we can, have the things that we want to have at the end of the day. Other things like this, like, so again, couldn't find a graph that was 2023, but just the equivalent, right, of just random goods, gas, milk, all that stuff. That was a 1980 price, which is absurd to see, but the equivalent in the middle is essentially cost adjusted for 2018 prices, what that would be. Now you can see that almost everything here has gone up significantly in price, except for milk. I guess milk has gone down in price, which is great. So if you drink milk, and that's all you sustain yourself on, then awesome. Then you're crushing it. But everything else has gone up a lot. 4-year college, right? 2018 price is 23.8, right? The car went from the equivalent of 17 grand to now 36 grand, right? But minimum wage in California has only gone from what was 949 to 11. Right? So a small percent change right there. And so what does this tell us, guys? What does this data tell us? And this is 2018. This is before the pandemic. This is before inflation really took off. So these numbers are probably even like double to this point. What does this tell us?
It's going to be even more expensive.
It's going to continue to get even more expensive year over year. So we're not keeping up in terms of what we're making. And if we're just keeping our money in savings as well, like, it's not going to keep up with, with what costs are nowadays, right? So if anyone here, has anyone read Rich Dad Poor Dad? Raise your hand. Okay, if you have an amazing book, you should totally read that, like, ASAP. But what does he say there? He says savers are losers, because at the end of the day, your money is going to devalue every single day. So if you're not investing it, you're not doing stuff to continue to make yourself more capital, then that's going to disappear. Your buying power is going to be nothing. Right? If you were in 1980, right, and you had, 100 grand, which in 1980s number was probably like $1 million, but you just kept 100 grand in your pillowcase the whole time, to now, right, that is probably worth nothing almost, right? It's worth, 100 grand, right? Still, but 100 grand doesn't get you very far anymore. So that's all I want to say, guys. I just really want to hone in on that aspect of why that is so important, and why I'm so passionate about, even just sharing this topic today. So types of income streams. Anyone know You want to write in the chat? Write in the chat right now. What are different types of income streams that you can have?
Well, there's a passive income from maybe a rental.
Yeah, passive. What else?
Well, I have my own business, so I have that stream.
Business income. Yep, love it. W-2. Yep, active income. Dividends. Yep, love it. W-2 real estate stock dividends, side hustle. Yes. All of these things. Royalties. Yep, I love that one too. So one of my students has music royalties as an income stream. I was like, that's pretty sick. I mean, if you owned a song that was just really good and gets played all the time, like Mariah Carey's Christmas song, like you would crush it. You could live the rest of your life. But yeah, so I'd say the main six, and again, there's multiple from here, but I would say the main six that most people have: one, earned income. That's your active income, your W-2, like Jen said. Second is capital gains. So buy an asset here, you sell an asset here, you have your capital gains in the middle. Third is interest income. Fourth is dividend income. Fifth is rental income, and sixth is business income. Now, there's a lot of different types of streams. I don't say like you have to have all six of these, right? You don't even need three, but you should probably have more than one at least at the end of the day. So I'm a big fan of not spreading yourself too thin, right? And try to do so many different things, but also having diversification helps as well, because one income stream, like Lynn said before, that can go away real fast. Right? If you were a Blockbuster franchisee and you're making bank in 2000, you're homeless now, right? So just be corrected for what the market is right now. So let's start number one, earned income, right? This is great. This is where most people start, right? Raise your hand here if you guys have a job or something that you spend your time for money for. Hell, I do. I still do, right? Like you need this to pay for your living, right? And this is the best vehicle to start saving to acquire other streams. So I call this your active income, because what you're doing is we're trading our time for money, right? And if you're like me and I worked at a big corporation, sometimes they give you money for not that much time, right? Because they're not really tracking that kind of stuff. But comes from employment, comes from time and effort. It's super reliable, because guess what? Every 2 weeks you get what? A paycheck. You get benefits, right? You get all that stuff. Your diversifying income, because and that's why diversifying income is important, because if you have one stream, that's it. But it's great because it's a huge network of people, especially you're in a big company, right? You can talk to a bunch of people. But this is, don't get me wrong, the foundation for everyone, right? Like even when you're starting out or even when you're established, having this is great, because even when you're lending to get assets, most lenders love seeing a W-2 income. So most people are like, I gotta get out of my job. I'd reframe this and say, well, how do I use my job to eventually plan my exit if I want to do that in the future? Some people just love it too, and that's okay too. Like if you love it, even more power to you. Like use that still to get more streams. Again, the pros of this, it's super reliable, it's super predictable. You know exactly what you're gonna make every single year, every single paycheck, right? And you plan out a lot. It's very comfortable, right? Because no matter what, you have something coming in. The cons of this is that it's limited by time, because guess what? They ask you for a lot of your time. I remember I was working my W-2. I was working like 70-hour weeks at some point at midnight, at 1 a.m., right? Just because you have to get the job done. The cons also are it's comfortable, right? Because when you get comfortable, you don't feel ambitious. You don't need to go do more stuff. You're just, I'm comfortable. I got a paycheck coming in. I don't really need to do anything else, right? So you can get stuck in that trap as well. It doesn't very scale, right? You're almost, unless you're the CEO, right? You're not in control of your destiny. And that's what I hated sometimes about my W-2, was that I was almost having to suck up, right, to my managers, right, to give me the best territories, to give me a promotion, right? But it's all subjective, right? And it can be risky as a sole income by itself, because like I said, if you're in a an industry that is going away, or an industry that can lay off a lot of people right now, and tech happened to be one of the industries this last go around, it can be risky, right? My sister, a lot of my friends were tech recruiters. When VC money and all that stuff stopped, yeah, well, there are no tech recruiters anymore. There's no need for that anymore, right? Jen raised her hand. My sister, same thing. Her boyfriend, so for sure can be risky. I mean, case study for me, I worked a job at Oracle. My base salary was $42.5 thousand. I was crushing it. I was really crushing it, right? And I thought I was the shiz, right? When I got that job, because I was, right out of college, and I was like making $16 of Jamba Juice before, or I'm sorry, not like $6 of Jamba Juice before. So I thought it was a huge upgrade until I realized that Costco workers were making more money than I was. Right? No offense against Costco workers, but it was kind of a gut punch of, oh, actually, I don't have any money because half that goes to taxes and the other half goes to my rent in San Francisco. But I was grateful for this, even though this entry level job, because I learned to live off that super, super low income. Right. And I was in sales. So basically I had commissions that come in there every time I'd do a sale. And instead of trying to upgrade my lifestyle, right, I would just use those commissions to buy more assets or more streams of income, like houses and whatnot. Now, the cool thing was, and I'm so grateful for this, I'm still really, really cheap because of this. Like I've learned to live off of almost nothing. I think my monthly expenses at that point in my life, when I was 21 years old, I was probably spending like $2,400 a month. Right? I go to free happy hours, as much as possible. Uber pools when that was still a thing before COVID, or just walk in general. Took the BART, right, and Metro a lot too, and just learned to be really, really cheap, but didn't have that lifestyle creep because that debt trap that I was talking about before, like when you start making more money, your automatic reaction is I can get more stuff, right? And that gap never happens because you just get better and more stuff. And I see people that make $500,000 that are paycheck to paycheck to this day, right? And I see people that make 70 grand a year and are crushing it, right? So it just all depends on the net at the end of the day. So and I think it's really important because if you have that net that you're saving, right, all the time, then you can do what? You can now invest in other streams, and that increases your top line, right, more and more. So just watch out for that lifestyle creep. One thing I know I did a lot tactically was how I knew, and who here can even name how much they spend every month right now? Okay, no hands. Okay, it's a painful exercise, but it's a very useful exercise. Not every Sunday. This is like a once a month thing. Once a month thing, I would just take my credit card bills. I would go through it line by line and be like, oof, right? The first time was definitely painful because you're like, heart is dropping because you're like, you've never seen it before, but you're like, yeah, I did spend on that. Oh man, I didn't spend that much, did I? Right? But it just helps you understand what is my budget, right? And if you really take that more approach of analytical and just doing numbers, you can actually start to plan that. All right, if I just cut back on these three things right now, I could save this much money and I could actually buy these stocks with that, and that stock can get me these kind of dividends, and that'll actually increase my income, and actually then it could pay for my coffee for free every month, right? So just random small things like that I think helps a lot. That's number one. Number two is just capital gains, right? Easy. You buy an asset here, you sell an asset here at a higher price. Common assets here: stocks, real estate, artwork. You could even argue NFTs back in the day, like last year, all effective stuff, right? Cool part about this, a lot of tax advantages for this. Requires pretty much minimal ongoing effort, so it's pretty passive. Obviously risk of loss during downturns, right? If you have to sell, and that's a big part right there. If you have to sell, so always having capital reserves for that. But if you hold assets for a long, long time, you're gonna be great, whether it's stocks or wealth building. I don't know too much about artwork yet, but I've heard that is a great tax vehicle as well. But if you can do that, don't overcapitalize yourself, but have capital reserves to withstand the downturns, then long-term, those assets are going to be worth more, right? And then you have the option then to sell if you want to, right? But the pros here, again, relatively passive. You have better tax treatment than your W-2. Anyone read Cash Flow Quadrant here by Robert Kiyosaki? Okay, so everyone read Rich Dad Poor Dad, but no one has read Cash Flow Quadrant. So if you haven't, that book is amazing because what it goes over is, who's taxed the most, right? So it's a quadrant of 4 different things, right? You have your W-2 employees, your self-employed individuals, your entrepreneurs, right? And then you have your big time, company, big company owners, and then you have investors. Now, what do you guys think gets taxed the most? Anybody guesses?
Earned
Lynn?
income.
What's that? Brian?
Earned income.
W-2 income. You know why?
I just know it is. I don't know why.
Okay, so let's go over the why. The why is because we are in a capitalist country, right? And how does capitalism work? Capitalism works when people are spending money and there's a transfer of goods everywhere. There's a lot of trade and commerce happening. That's when capitalism is awesome. So what the government is doing is they're rewarding people who are doing what? Creating jobs and whatnot, right? They want people to create jobs. That's why they give you more tax breaks, right? So for example, if you are buying a house, how many jobs are you giving to people? How many people are making money off that transaction? Ryan, you're an agent, right? As an agent, you're making money. As a title rep, you're making money. As a lender, you're making money. As a home inspector, you're making money. As a contractor, you're making money, right? So everyone's making, you've created 5+ jobs on just one transaction, right? So the government is like, hey, cool. Thank you for doing that. We're going to give you more tax incentives to keep on doing that. So you have more jobs for people. Whereas a W-2 employee, you are the job, right? So that's why, you know, cash flow quadrant wise, that's why they work like that. Cons of that, you know, one time, you know, then you have to find another one, right? So like once you buy an asset, sell it, right? Then you got to do it again. And you got to get taxed a little bit on it too. It's not as reliable, right? Downturns, ups and downs, right? It's not just constant. And it does require capital. You can't just invest with no money. You have to invest with some kind of money, right? So, but an example of that, I mean, if you can save, and this is a real life example of my, you know, my very first asset, which is my condo in the city that I house hacked. You know, at the time I was living with 5 other people in San Francisco. I paid $1,500 in rent. I also paid $400 in tickets quarterly, but that's beside the point. If you guys live in San Francisco, you understand that. My housing expense was $1,500, right? I bought a condo in San Francisco with a 1-bedroom, one den with 700 square feet. My PITI was about $1,200. My HOA was $759. I rented out that den for $1,200. So my monthly expense was $759 a month, which was awesome, right? So again, I knew that because I was tracking my income and my expenses, right? So just no interest in that. Now, the 5-year difference of this, right, was I saved about $45,000 in my housing expense from renting to actually owning, right? Going down to principal. My tenant paid down $25,000 of my principal payments, right? Meaning my loan. And I gained $62,000 in appreciation, right? So it was a total $129,000 difference in gain versus renting, right? That was an asset for me. Now, not all primary homes are assets because sometimes they're not generating income, right? Maybe they're not even generating appreciation potentially, right? So for me, this was an asset, and I did sell this home, and I used that. I didn't have capital gains taxes on it, but I did have capital gains on it, which meant like I did make, you know, $63K on the appreciation of it. But I took the 129K gain, and I bought a 16 unit with it, right? Now it didn't cover the whole down payment, but it covered a lot of it, right? And now that gets me 3 to 4K a month of cash flow, and I got a 500K of equity just off that, right? So that one asset from capital gains helped me buy another asset that made me more capital gains, right? So just as a classic example of just using assets to buy more assets. Yeah, Brian, you had a question.
This might be off topic, so you can shush me if this is, but do you have to sell your assets to like trade up with this, or are there other ways to like keep it in loans or something?
So my biggest regret always, except for this asset, because it was a condo in San Francisco, so I'm kind of glad I sold it, but all my other assets I've ever sold, we only sold 3 other assets. I am super glad I didn't sell, or I'm super glad, or I'm not glad. I wish I didn't sell those assets. And I'll get to that here in a second, Brian, of like what that means to keep these assets and how you can do that and how I would recommend doing it from here on out. Okay, so the other next one then is interest income, right? So interest income, that is just passive earnings from lending, right? So things like putting your money in a money market, putting in savings and CDs and bonds, putting in a whole life cash insurance, private money lending, right? It's really predictable, low risk, steady income. Obviously, inflation risks affects your purchasing power of this. High yield options right now are huge, but it helps to supplement your income too. Now, in today's world, this is huge because guess what? Like money markets right now are paying 5%. Right, so you can put your money in the money market for 5%. It's like a huge savings account that's paying you great with no risk, right? Debt funds right now, they're a little more risky. They pay 10%, right? These are just examples. We used to have money in a debt fund. I pulled it out right now because debt funds usually do what they fund, like flippers and whatnot. And right now, you know, real estate's getting a little tougher on that. So same with private money loans, right? 10%, mid to higher risk, even though you have real estate as the kind of the collateral on that, like it is higher percent, but right now you can get 5%, and then some CDs you even get 7%, right? So the question is like, you know, do I need to give money 10%, or can I just go to a CD that's almost essentially risk-free and get 7% right now? Now, who knows why these things are so high? So same thing, the government is trying to do what? They're trying to do what's called quantitative tightening, where they're taking money out of the system, right? Now they're telling us like, hey, don't invest right now, right? And so they're like, hey, why aren't you, if you could invest there, but you could also invest in this CD or money market and get 5 to 7%, right? So that's great, right? So if you're looking at interest income right now, which, we put a lot of our money in a money market right now because it's, again, super low risk, to almost no risk, and you're getting 5% of your money, right? That's awesome at this point. Harder to cash flow that right now because, you put money in right now and it's like, can you even get 5% cash on cash? You could still, but it's harder and harder. All right, the next is dividend income, right? So dividend income is just passive earnings just through stocks, right? Very stable, not tied to the stock market fluctuations, going to pay you out. A lot of these bigger companies, of course, can act as a buffer during market declines. You can maximize investing by doing constant dividend paying stocks and stuff. But again, like pros, definitely passive, definitely really stable. The cons of that, it requires capital, but also it's not the highest income generator, in my opinion. So I actually don't invest in this personally, but I know it's a big one for people, but it is something that is very passive and stable. So I'm not going to talk about too much because it's not something that we do a lot. The next is rental income, right? So Brian, to your question before, like how do you continue to have your properties and not have to sell it, but also realize some of the gain and the equity? And the question to that is, the answer to that is, well, rental income in general, right? So this is just passive earnings from property rentals. So real estate can offer capital gains, of course, rental income tax advantages, but also refinance abilities, right? And that's the big one I want to preface here, because as we typically think about cash flow, we typically think about what? Like, all right, well, what my expenses are, what my rent is, and all the differences in my cash flow, right? And that's fine. That's one way to think about cash flow or rental income. But the other is also refinance abilities, right? I call these, capital gain or not capital events, right? But they are still part of your rental income in general, because what it is let's say you own a property for a few years, right? That property has gone from 100K to 200K, and then you actually cash flow $100 a month from that too. You're getting about $1,200 of rental passive income on that every year, and it's not appreciated at 100K. But now if you refi that and you pull out 100K, guess what? You now create 100K of passive income for yourself, right? How many years of making $1,200, right, a year will it take you to save that 100K that you just got in that couple of years of refi? A lot, like forever, essentially. I don't know the math off the top of my head, but a long freaking time, right? Whereas you could just refi it. There's not really any tax liability on a refi, and you could just continue to do that and use that as a bank account over and over again. A bank account that appreciates at a really high clip that you can leverage too. So Brian, does that answer your question of like how you can hold on to stuff while making it like while also realizing the gain of that?
Yeah, that helps. Thanks.
Yeah. Now, the problem right now is that, people locked in 3% rates and now it's 7% rates. So, that isn't happening as much anymore, but this is still a strategy. At some point, it's going to make sense again, right? Whether through rate reductions in the next few years, or your assets going to be worth so freaking much that you can't ignore, you not refining. Even if rates are 6%, you got it for 3%. If you have that much trapped equity in there, you got to do something. Like it wouldn't make sense to not, right? Unless you value just the pure cash flow. The cash flow were so crazy that you just couldn't resist. But at some point, that number becomes so big that like you have to do something with either refining it, 1031 exchange it, or something, right? Where you can make your equity work for you more. Again, rental income. This is again a personal favorite of mine, just because we built our whole career off this. But it's a very steady source of income. Absolutely an inflation hedge, right? Against, especially with hard assets like real estate. Huge tax benefits with cost segregation and accelerated appreciation as well with this. So again, pros can be somewhat passive, right? And again, I would preface everyone to say that it is not 100% passive. Nothing is 100% passive, but it is somewhat passive. Huge tax treatment with this. Again, back to the cash flow quadrant, investors get treated the best because you're creating jobs. Cons of that, yes, it requires capital. It requires some kind of expertise as well. Having tenants isn't always easy, right? Ask me how I know, but it's all part of that game, that you realize that is part of the game too. Here's a case study for us. I mean, we have about 232 rental units right now. It produces about 166 grand a month of gross income. And yes, we can refinance these, right? And when the time is right to refinance this, we will, right? And that is a form of rental income for us, where we can pull these huge gains, and full transparency. The goal for us would be every year we have one big capital event where we do a big rental or big refinance. We're putting a large amount of money out, right? And then next year we're doing another building, right? And that kind of restarts the cycle, because if you do one of these buildings in year one, you take a huge money, a lot of money out. And then year two, you do another building. That first building, maybe in 5 years from now, you can do it again, right? And that's how a lot of people do stuff, right? Is they use that income over and over and over again. So rental income, great one. And the last is business income. So Lynn, you talked about this a lot, but yeah, your business income, this is earned from owning and operating a business, which, is an active income, right? I also call this your side hustle. So what else are you doing? Like things like Turo, things like Etsy shops, Craigslist. Hell, I mean, even a TikTok influencer, right? I mean, you can make money off anything nowadays, right? So there's no excuse to not have at least a side hustle where you're doing something, right? One of our students sells granola at a farmer's market every Saturday, right? I was talking to a buddy this morning. He said his first side hustle was going to farmers markets as well and building websites for all these vendors, right? Like, 'cause they didn't have it. So there's something that you can do, right? That a lot of people cannot do. Find out what that is, do it, make some money. You have a card, you don't use a lot, use Turo, right? Like there's a lot of income out there. Etsy shop, candles, whatever it is. Craigslist, you can do what Gary Vee does and just go to freaking yard sales and pays $2 for baseball card and then flips it for $20, whatever it is. My funny story, my mom had bought Barbie dolls way back in the day and told my sisters that they couldn't open the box. And then we lost it for like many years. Anyways, we found it after they moved out of their house, and it's just like pristine Barbie doll, never been taken out of the box. And guess what movie just came out and took over the whole world? Barbie. So we looked at how much these dolls are, and they're like worth like $3,000 now. And so there are side hustles like that, like everywhere in general. So no excuses, guys. Like start something if you don't have anything, because you can make money on the side doing stuff. Pros of this, again, better tax treatments, huge potential gains. You have control of your business and control of your time. Lynn, you probably know this really, really well. It's scale as well, especially if the business is online, right? That is a very big thing nowadays. I mean, just look at freaking TikTok influencers. They can scale so fast nowadays. But it does require a lot of work, capital, or both, right? So there's a lot of your time, energy, especially in the beginning parts of it. Can take many, many years before you actually actualize anything. But the higher risk, and there's higher risk of going to zero, but there's also huge potential gains, right? I mean, these are businesses that can freaking 10x, 1000x, right? I've heard one of my mentors was told me, it's like, yeah, 90% of millionaires are from real estate. 100% of billionaires are from equities, meaning from businesses. Like, so just putting that perspective, 90% real estate millionaires, or 90% of millionaires come from real estate, 100% of billionaires come from equities and businesses. So puts it in perspective for sure. So how do you create multiple streams, right? So you got to start with something, right? So unless you get a huge inheritance or a trust fund, which I know most of you guys don't have, start with your active income. Just work, right? Work, get really good at your job. Like I remember I hated my job as a sales rep, but I just put my head down and I was like, you know what, I'm good at it. Let me just put my head down and just suck it up for 8 years and just do it and be really freaking good at it, right? And make money and then invest that into other stuff, right? So your active income, what I always say the path is you have your active income so that you can invest more into passive income and other active income stuff. And so eventually you can focus on your passion income, right? So your active income, that's your earned income. You're trading your time for money. Your business income, right? That's running your business, whether it's an Etsy shop or Turo or whatever it is, right? You get enough money from there, like you're not gonna want to work forever, right? So then you should invest in passive income. So things that can have these big capital gains or can create interest income by investing in money markets, or whole life cash insurance is great too. Maybe you invest in stocks and you can get dividend income from that, or you can invest in properties and get rental income. And eventually, if you feed the passive monster so much, then eventually you don't have to have your active anymore, and you can focus on passion. But what makes the most impact in yours and the people in your lives the most? right? So that's the path. And so how do you do it? Well, start with one stream, like get really good at that one stream. Most likely your earned income. Maybe for you, Lynn, it's cutting, it's your balayage stuff, right? And just get really good at that and make money and be intentional about it. Track your finances. If you don't do that, which no one raised their hand before, so everyone should do that as homework, is just understand what your income and expenses are. And then save enough to get into your second stream, whether it's another business or an asset. I've heard things like drop shipping and e-commerce and things like that. Like, just find out what you are passionate about, what you are good at, and do that, right? Even consulting. Brian, I saw you on this call, right? Sarah and Brian, like you have your company as a PA, right? Like consulting, right? In general, and it's great. Yeah, and then use your business and assets to buy more businesses and assets to eventually have enough to be able to choose what your life is going to be, right? So just to reiterate, start with one stream, get really good at it, make a lot of money there, save enough to buy into a second stream, whether it's more businesses or assets, whatever it is, and just keep on doing that, and eventually use your business and assets to buy more business and assets until you have enough. Right now, I do want to preface this saying that everyone on this call is enough already, right? Like, we don't need these things. We would like these things, right? And we would like these things because it'll help us, focus on our passions and give back more to other people. For us, I can't say for us, full transparency, I started W-2 job, right? Worked at Oracle, and huge income there, 42K a year. It was crazy. I was crushing it. But then I went to ADP, right? Made a little more money there. I got, really honed into my craft. And I was fully transparent with my supervisors and my managers. Like, hey, I'm really here. I'm going to make a lot of money, right? But my passion is I'm going to buy enough real estate so I can get out of this. And they laughed at me. And then I did it. And then they got pissed at me for leaving. But beside the point. But we did that. My wife Jenny started Zenco's Homes. I met her at Oracle. She left that first. I started Zenco's University. We started creating more business income. But even at Oracle and ADP, we were buying income properties. We were buying income properties, and putting ourselves in situations where we were making more passive income. So that passive income was starting to creep up to my active income of how much I was making, and that actually helped me in my active income job too, because what it allowed me to do was, especially in a sales role, it allowed me not to have to worry about the commissions to feed myself. Because now I was just worrying I had the passive income coming in to feed and leave my lights on. I didn't have to worry about that. So when I can go out to talk to clients, like, I could truly be like a true consultant to them, like actually care about what they needed, right? And be authentic in that regard, versus you had a used car salesperson ever, right, that hasn't had a sale in months. I mean, they're like, oh yeah, you should buy this Subaru because it does all this stuff, blah, 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 but they're really asking you what you really want. And so, was able to buy more real estate, had enough passive income, got into, circles that kind of taught us about like whole life cash insurance, right? Which is an asset where, it'll make 5%. It's this concept of infinite banking, where your money is making money for you, and you can borrow against that and make more money with that, but you're still making money over here, right? So an awesome concept in general. Just helped us like make interest income every year, right, and every month. Money market, depending on where we're at in the cycle right now, we have a lot of liquidity in the money market because it's no risk and we're getting a huge return, right? I mean, we make like almost 50 grand a year just on the money market, right? Like, that's awesome. That's almost, that's the average income for people in the United States. Again, we don't have any dividend income, right? Again, that's something I could talk to or am passionate about, but I know that's out there. But what that's allowed us to do is focus on our passion income stuff, like things like Zenco's University, where we can teach, and I see a lot of ECU guys on this call, but like we can help others like create a path as well. We have our Ikigai Collective Mastermind, which is a really intimate group of people that really just want to care and help each other move to the next level in all aspects of life. Lotus Rising Retreats, which is our mental health facility, right? Like, that's not something that I could have done when I was working at Oracle, right? Because I just didn't have the means to do that. But now we do, and we want to be able to expand that more because it's going to help more and more people, right? And I think that's a big piece too, guys, as a mindset thing, especially as in a topic like this where it's about making more streams of income. I mean, you can look at like, hey, I want to have more streams of income, right? I want to have 20 streams of income. I want to have 100 streams of income. That's great. But if you really focus on, well, I want to help 100 people make $1 million a year, you'll get to these streams, right? Because you're adding that much value to everyone else's lives that it'll help you so much in that capacity too. Whether it's being the best real estate agent as possible and helping families buy a great deal that they make $1 million in equity right there. That's always going to come back to you because they're going to refer you, right, to their friends. Like, this agent got me an amazing deal. They did a great job for me. I made $1 million on this. Like, you should work with them too. I said, it'll always come back around like that. So yeah, that is how we do it today, guys. So again, you're ever interested in working more with us, St. University, that's our passion stuff. I mentor and coach people and just teach them how to create passive income so that through real estate, so that they can be empowered to just help other people, right? That's the culture that we have, and that's what we want to focus on. Always happy to work and at least talk with you guys. You can use this QR code, or if you don't follow us on social already, and that's our social media, Calvin Chin REI, Jenny Locke, or St. University. You can also visit our website too, but happy to talk to anyone here and just give guidance on, what I would do in their situation, because guys, you guys are all in different situations in life. Every single one of you guys, whether you were a tech recruiter or you just started a business or you're a real estate agent or a W-2 transitioning into a real estate agent. There's so many different people here right now, right? We all have different paths in our lives, but I'm happy to give any insights or a third-party objective view of like, hey, this is where I would say a good next step is for you guys. So that being said, happy to answer any questions for you guys. Thanks for hanging out here on what day is it today? Thursday evening with me, learning about different streams and hearing me talk for freaking 45 minutes. Yeah, happy to take any questions if anyone has any. Dana, what's up? I haven't seen you in a minute. How you been?
Hi, I'm sorry I was late. It's so nice to see you.
You too. What a throwback.
I know you're talking about ADP, and I was like,
Yeah. Well, what are you talking about, ADP? Yeah. Yeah. Dana and I went back to the ADP days when we were door to door on companies and stuff, and that was fun. Gene, yeah, what's up?
Okay, I just have a question. When you say you can get passive income from your university, so what you can get from there, what you can learn from that to get a passive income? Yeah,
so in our university, at least, we focus on helping people create passive income through investing, right? So passive income just on the rents, right? So that you can eventually, and this is the path that we took, Jay and I, along our journey, was we took our active income, which is our job and our commissions. We took all that, we invested into rental income or cash flowing real estate, and just took every check and did that and repeated until we had that income that was actually outweighing my salary at ADP actually. And that's when I knew I could leave and focus on things that I actually like doing. So that's what we mean, Gene.
Okay, got it. Okay, yeah. Thanks.
Of course. Who else? What else? Yeah, Jen, what's up?
Hey, with the majority, well, you have so many rental properties and it's really expensive to buy in California. Are the majority of your rentals out of state? Yeah, so it's a great question. So Jen, we first started, Jenny and I's first properties were both in state, and then we're like, crap, we're out of money. What do we do? Right. So then we started buying out of state and just scaling it from there. And then we have, probably like 4 properties in California, and then the rest are out of state. But the mindset there was, in the beginning at least, was we wanted to get as many properties under our belt to learn how to do it. And if you guys know me, then you know that in the very beginning, I failed a lot, right? Just like fail forward. But all those failures, I don't consider failures because it taught me how to do it better and better. And to a point, where nowadays, it's just easier now, right? Because we've done it all. So
I have a question.
Yeah.
So so I have one passive income. It's my parents' house actually that I bought from them.
Yeah.
And I've just been managing it by myself, but when do you know, or when should you decide to like get I guess an extra business and call it like real estate, and then continue from there as an entity? Does that make sense?
Yeah, like once you create like an LLC and call it a business and have an
yeah. Because right now I only have one, so I'm just managing it. It's no big deal.
Yeah, you probably don't need to yet, but it just depends on how many properties you actually end up having. And I actually look at it more as like how many assets do I have in an LLC.
Yeah.
I think the common misconception is I need, if I put my asset into an LLC, it's a business now, right? Not really. If it's a single member LLC, which if it's just owned by you, it's what's called in tax season is it's just a pass-through entity. It still goes into your personal tax returns.
Okay.
Now, when it becomes a business is when you start taking draws from it, right? And so, yeah, I mean, I guess one way you could look at it is, yeah, you can have an LLC, you can do deductions from it, right? You can, buy a car and deduct it from that potentially, right? As long as it's a business expense. So there is that aspect of it, but you'll get to a point where, actually the move would be to create an S corp that creates income, right? And then you can actually start to, so like, for example, we do a lot of multifamily investments, right? And so, we have all our multifamilies in LLCs, but also we have an S corp too, right? The S corp is basically a management company. That management company basically helps me. It's the company from my time spent doing the deal, right? And it's like buying the deal, so for acquisition fees and asset managing it too, right? Because there's a time spent on that too. So at that point, it probably makes more sense to like create these entities and stuff. But I think the common mistake I see people do is they try to create entities right away, and we'll be the first to admit that. Like before we had bought any properties, right? We were in a mastermind, like, yeah, you guys have LLCs, blah, blah, blah. So turning out we're so pumped. We're like, let's call it Zen Coast Properties. We spent like days like looking in the source and Google, and that's actually how we created the name. I was like, Zen is a great name. I love that. It's very calming. And then Coast was awesome. And then, like, we live in the coast. That's great. Like you live in the East Coast, I live in the West Coast. Like, it's coast, right? And then we hired like a Fiverr graphic designer and got a logo and got business cards and we got an LLC, spent thousands of dollars. And they're like, crap, we don't have anything though. There's no income on this. So we just spend thousands of dollars and we have cool business cards, and that's all we have to show for it. So again, don't fall for that trap. You don't need it yet until you have, I would say, like maybe 4 or 5 properties.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Yeah, Dana did too. Yeah, I hear you. Anyone, who else has done that? Not to be ashamed of. It's cool. I mean, you guys are name, but it was definitely not the best money spent.
I have a question, Calvin, along the S Corp. So I have an S Corp for my real estate business as working as a licensed agent in California. As I purchase more real estate or investment properties, would I want to create a separate entity that's separate from my licensed real estate activities?
Correct. Yeah, because you don't want anything to happen. Like if you mix and commingle those funds in general, then if you get sued in your agent business, they can go after your properties and vice versa, right? So yeah, and typically we say in S corp stuff, right? Like keep that as active income stuff. So like if you have a business, right? Lynn, I'm talking to you. You have your business. It should be in an S corp, right? And if it's property and stuff like that, if it's just sheltering for liability stuff, LLCs are great for that. But S corps are more for active income, business income stuff. You can go to a C corp as well, but a C corp, you're gonna get taxed. You're gonna get double taxed. It's really great for like if you're looking to sell your business, right? So if you're like a tech company or something like that, you want your objective is to sell. C corps are great for that, but S corp for you, Mara, I think is perfect for what you have.
So then, okay, so I have a follow-up question to that. So to avoid the trap you fell into, although you could argue that look where you are today, so maybe that mistake helped you, but what would you suggest someone to do to, like, at what point would you create an LLC or an S corp?
I would say once you have about 400K of assets, start to think about it, right? But if you have like a couple 100K house or $100,000 house, you don't need to do it yet, right? And to be honest, like it's easier it is easier for tracking though, so that's good. But like I wouldn't recommend it for at least like 4 or 5 properties or something like that.
Okay.
All right, what else, guys? Shirley, I'm gonna call on you. What's up? I know you got some questions.
Okay, maybe I do have a question about advice on like other ideal streams of passive income for someone that's just, I think we're both very like entrenched in our primary W-2 jobs. And it
Yeah.
makes it really hard to kind of ramp up to like create these, invest like time-wise into these new passive income streams, which is why we joined Zen Coast. But what do you have any advice on how to manage that? Because a lot of the times we work really late and things are kind of demanding.
Yeah, and you guys are both at startups, right?
I'm at a startup. He's at a bigger company, but it's still very intense.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a couple of things, right? I mean, the easy thing is you can buy into passive stuff like real estate or like stocks, right? Those are the easy, low hanging fruit, because typically if you're working long hours, you're typically compensated for that too. And so I'm assuming you guys are compensated very, very well for your time you spend on the companies. So that, so that being said, I would take whatever you could and just invest it into, assets that you don't have to worry about a lot. So a real estate asset would be easy. A stock asset would be easy. I think we talked about a little bit house hacking. I think you guys mentioned like you guys want to like live in flip, like things like that. I think that's also a great idea, because you could take the weekends and the time that you do have and like do it but something like that is going to be a huge construction project out of state, for example, that might not be in your wheelhouse right now, because it's going to take a lot of time and demand a lot of attention that you may not have. But if you live in it, that might be really easy, because you live in it and you actually just like work on it whenever you have downtime. The other aspect, and you're going to hate me for saying this, but demanding jobs in general, like how can you just carve out a few hours a day, whether it's an hour a day, maybe it's waking up an hour earlier, which sucks too, but how much do you want it? Like if you really, really want it, you'll find the time, right? I always say it's like, you find the time that you always prioritize what you're really passionate about. I was working 70-hour weeks, right? It's like, I always found the time, whether that be on the bathroom toilet, in an Uber ride, right? Like waking up early an hour, right? On Sunday morning, right before I would do anything, I would just like I would get some coffee and look at my income and expenses, right? So just figure out your schedule, right? That's also a big thing too. Just figure your schedule and like figure out when you can fit something in, and then maximize that time. I think I told you last time, but like Parkinson's law. Anyone know what Parkinson's law is? Yeah, Brian, I think I might have told you, but Shirley, I can relate. You can relate this, right? Went to high school, college with you. You know this. So it's like when you have a midterm or a class or a test on Friday, when are you studying for that test? Like Thursday night. But you will study everything you need to get done for that test. Right? Just say the same thing as like when you're having people over for dinner, right? You got to clean your house. You're going to clean your house no matter what before they get there, right? Versus on a Sunday when you don't have anything to do, it might take you all Sunday to do it, right? So the amount of time that it takes you, like that you give yourself to do it, you will do it, right? Versus like, oh, I'm giving myself 3 hours. Well, it's going to take you 3 hours. You give yourself an hour, right? To go look at your income expenses. You're going to spend the time to go do it real fast. And so that's just a time management thing that has always helped me in my life. It's just like, and you can get extreme with this too. I mean, I ordered a hourglass and I literally just put it on the other side. And I just watched those little sand pebbles fall. And I'm like, oh crap, I'm running out of time. And that's a good little psychological hack. Also, another hack on that is get your cell phone away, put it on do not disturb, or put it in a different room where you're doing stuff. Because the worst distraction is seeing what Mara's doing on Instagram. Like, what is Mara up to? Oh, okay, cool. Let me DM her real quick. Oh, cool. That's awesome, right? Like, that's like 15 minutes right there. So.
Sweet. Thank you.
Yeah, 100%. Cool. What else? Let's get one more in there. Dana, what's up?
I'm just curious how you selected locations for your out-of-state properties. Was it budget-based and you were just kind of looking at the price range for your budget, or were you specifically looking for specific, like growing metropolitan areas, and then you figured out what was in your budget there? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so you want the answer of why is Calvin now, or dumbass Calvin in the beginning? I'll give you the dumbass answer first, and I'll give you what I would say to people now, right? The dumbest answer in the beginning was I didn't know, right? I was like, all right, like I've heard Dallas is really good. I literally typed in Google Forbes best places to invest. Dallas, Texas came up a lot. I had family there, so it was great. I did some research. Like my preliminary research was just population growth, job growth, economic diversity. I was like, that was awesome. And my aunt lived there. I was like, all right. And then the price point was like 140K. And I was like, great, I can do that. Right. Not anymore. So don't get your hopes up anymore. That was like way back in the day. But nowadays, what I'd say is, all right, like, and if anyone has done the hot seat with me at Zen Coast, you guys know this, but now we say what? We say, all right, well, let's look at the 3-year plan, where we want to be, right? Let's reverse engineer that. Let's say, well, your time, how much time we have, how much, how much time we have, what's our lifestyle like in terms of like, do we have like family, kids, things like that? Are we looking for cash flow appreciation? What's my risk tolerance, right? And say, all right, like based off that, and how much cash do I have, and how much debt to income do I have? And then from there, it's like, then we'll look at the medium home price, right? And say, does this make sense or not? Like for what I have. Brian, Sarah, we did our hot seat today. What do I say to you guys about your, what kind of market you guys should be looking for? Not to put you guys on the spot or anything like that, but these are a perfect example for that. Oh, Brian, Sarah. Oh, I swear we did this. Like, they're ghosting me now, but I swear we did this earlier today. But yeah, essentially, like Dana, I'd say like just reverse engineer it, right? And just see like, all right, if I have 50 grand to spend, right? What's my debt to income? I could probably get, 5x so maybe I could afford 250K of a property, right? But I want to use 20K of that for a rehab of it. So I'm down at like 220, right? So really, but I want to be at a higher price point after that. So I want to be at maybe an average price point of 300K as a medium home price. If I can have that, right? Because then if I add value, I know I can get to that medium price point value, right? So things like that, I would say, is the more wise version of me. Says like, those are the things that you should look out for. And like, do I need the cash flow right now, or do I need the equity right now? So cool. Oh, now Brian's here to come back. Great. Put me on the spot like that. All right, cool. Anyone with a major takeaway today? Any light bulb moments? Eric, you've been quiet. What's a light bulb moment for you, man?
I appreciate just being a sponge throughout this entire meeting. And no, I just, I'm all about time blocking and constantly finding different ways to just get better, not just personally, but as a husband, as a son and as a brother. So I think all of this just reminding my why in terms of, having passive income. I do have a little side business on the side, making mochi donuts.
Oh,
and
let's go.
So I was a teacher before I hopped into real estate, and yeah. So I definitely understand how hard it is to just hustle, but I try to find different opportunities every day to just put myself out there. And I think my wife and I, we talked about just constantly investing and finding different ways to do that, and we're really interested in building that for our family in the future, for our I'm grateful that my grandparents are still alive. So I really want to, try to cherish the time that we have together. But yeah, man, I really do appreciate you making this happen for all of us, because, it's a blessing. So I don't take it for granted.
Yeah. Every day, guys, is a blessing, Eric. And I love you should say that. And honestly, as like I said earlier in the beginning, like none of this really actually matters, right? Like it's great to be able to do that, but it's what Eric said is like, so we can spend our time with our family and the people that we love. So, whatever it is, and that you find as a side hustle, real estate, whatever it is. Jenny sold Jordans. She flipped Jordans. That's a thing that people do. So, there's so many different ways you could do it. There's Poshmark. I know that's out there too, and that's pretty cool. My sister does, Airbnb furnishing stuff. So just a bajillion things you could do, right? So hope this is helpful, guys. I'm always open for questions if you ever need. So just DM me or anything like that. And other than that, guys, have an amazing night. We'll talk soon.